The ABC is out of control. Now, there's nothing new in that. I know you know that. There are poor standards, ideological bias, zero diversity of thought, a staff collective thumbing its nose at management and the board. But what's changed in the past couple of days is that we now know the latest chair of the ABC board, renowned media icon Ita Buttrose, has failed at her task and has become yet another captive to the groupthink that's so endemic at the public broadcaster. Buttrose, astonishingly, is now accusing the coalition government of attacking the ABC's independence and trying to control the content on the public broadcaster. Listen to this on ABC Radio this morning.
Does he agree with the notion of an independent public broadcaster and an independent board? Or does he believe that politicians should be able to meddle in and dictate to the national broadcaster about content? Because that's where this is leading.
Ita Buttrose was referring to Liberal Senator Andrew Bragg, who's announced a Senate Communications Committee inquiry into the complaints processes at the ABC and SBS. Now, the ABC has already commissioned a review into its own complaint system after lots of problems and complaints, and Senator Bragg joined me to discuss that on this program last week.
I'm keen to make sure we get some structural changes here, because what we've learned is that unless things are in the public domain, the ABC will not change. They won't respond to anything else.
A couple of days later, he decided to get the Senate committee to get its review underway as well. Fair enough. What could be wrong with that? Well, lots, according to the ABC chair. Ita Buttrose said this was an act of political interference to intimidate the ABC and mute it as the country's most trusted source of public interest journalism. What utter rot. This is about a complaints process to deal with all kinds of mistakes and deceptions and campaigns conducted by the ABC without proper accountability at taxpayers' expense. You can't claim to be a trusted source of journalism if you're not prepared to deal with complaints and address your own flaws. Like the ABC spending years pursuing Cardinal George Pell, campaigning against him relentlessly all the way to a jail cell on the most questionable of evidence, only to see him exonerated and freed, an innocent man. Like how the ABC pursued then Attorney General Christian Porter in an even more underhand manner, seeing him accused of an historical rape case in which there was no evidence and in which the alleged victim had made a complaint decades later and then withdrawn it and was no longer alive. Even the ABC had to admit it doesn't contend the claims were true. Perhaps someone might want to complain about how the journalist who drove both of those sagas, Louise Milligan, then defamed a coalition MP, Andrew Laming, in a personal tweet, but the ABC, or taxpayers I should say, paid her legal costs and damages. Then there's the whole Russian collusion thing, a 3-part series. The story of the century amounted to nothing. There might be complaints about how no one at the public broadcaster picked what was happening at the last federal election, or complaints about how it has no diversity of views on global warming, on border protection, on unionism, on Indigenous affairs, or so many other issues. Complaints perhaps about Norman Swan, his alarmism and incorrect predictions throughout this pandemic. Even my complaints on this show about biased and deliberately misleading attacks against this station by Paul Barry and Media Watch. Dealing with these complaints is vital for fairness, for accuracy, for accountability, and taxpayers have a right to know there's a decent complaints process in place. But Ita Buttrose is effectively saying, don't worry, we're reviewing ourselves, so leave us alone.
Well, I don't think there is anything regular about this Senate inquiry and the way Senator Bragg has engineered it. I mean, let me say, first of all, that we believe in the role of the Senate, the need for transparency and accountability. So what we have here really is a partisan political exercise under the guise of using a Senate Legislation Committee for government senators to undermine the ABC's independence. There's no other way that I can take this. I think we're probably the most accountable institution in Australia.
This is an extraordinary claim, isn't it? A dramatic overreaction and a defiant rejection of scrutiny. The ABC is happy to take taxpayers' money to the tune of more than $1 billion a year, but objects to parliamentary scrutiny. The chair and the usual ABC defenders have lost touch with the real world. Former Media Watch host Jonathan Holmes tweeted, "Never in 40 years seen such a withering statement by an ABC chair." but then seldom seen such a blatant attempt to subvert ABC independence either. Honestly, these people are about as independent as soldiers in a parade. They all march together on every argument, no matter how intellectually feeble that argument is. Let's just check the ABC's recent form on media independence and government scrutiny. Embittered former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd is pushing for a royal commission into News Corp, owners of this station, of course, and he yearns for some legislative intervention. So do you reckon the ABC has called out the mischief in his stunt, reported it dispassionately, or barracked for this act of political vengeance?
Now, 7 years after he left politics, Kevin Rudd has spearheaded a petition to the federal parliament calling for a royal commission into media diversity and also targeting the Murdoch press.
More than 500,000 people signed it. It was tabled in Parliament today. Former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd, his call for a royal commission into the media in general, but with a focus on News Corporation.
Kevin Rudd, your petition for a royal commission into News Corp has now achieved more than 500,000 signatures in Australia, including that of Malcolm Turnbull.
I want to talk about your petition for a royal commission into the Murdoch media. You think it's having a toxic influence?
In response to former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd's call for a royal commission into what he describes as Rupert Murdoch's Australian media monopoly.
It's so illuminating, isn't it? Campaigning for a News Corp Royal Commission, but screaming interference if Parliament reviews their complaints process. And listen to who runs the same lines as Buttrose. Senator Sarah Hanson-Young declared she will move in the Senate to protect the ABC from the blatant attack launched on it by the Morrison government. Independence of our public broadcaster is an essential part of our Australian democracy. It shouldn't be up to the politicians to dictate what the ABC can and cannot report on. This is the same senator who chaired a Senate inquiry into media diversity in Australia, part of Rudd's anti-News Corp obsession. Didn't sound like she was fighting for medium freedom then.
I just find it extraordinary that you can appear before us today and try and talk down the immense power that the company that you work for, you head, has in Australia. Do you reject the assertion that News Corp Australia participates in character assassination? Have you ever felt uncomfortable about the headlines in your newspapers? Would you support your editors fronting this committee?
Look, that's a Green senator, so we expect all kinds of loopiness, right? But with Ita Buttrose now uttering the same lines as Hanson-Young and Jonathan Holmes, with Buttrose now pretending, and that's all it is, pretending that there's some threat to the independence of the ABC and control over its editorial content, well, that just shows that Buttrose, like so many before her, has just become a captive of the organisation. Instead of leading, reforming and improving the ABC, she now seems to have become just the leading advocate of this vast, ideologically homogenous staff collective. As you know, it should be our ABC, your ABC, but in reality, it's their ABC.